American Prospect has a great story on what's happening in Minnesota, and we've had people IM quite a bit. We mentioned this yesterday, I think it was. Minnesota, like in 2016, people were worried that Minnesota was going red. And even in 2020, Republicans had maintained control of the state Senate in Minnesota when Biden had won in the state. In 2022, the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, the DFL, that's sort of like that's instead of the Democratic Party there, right?
Yeah, it sort of grew up from like the 1920s, 30s populist movement.
They gained 3 Senate seats. They have a 1-seat majority in the Senate. They also have the House, and they have Democratic Governor Tim Walz, who easily won, I guess. So this is the first trifecta they've had for almost 8 years. And this is what they've managed to do. I mean, it's amazing.
Historic.
Historic. And I guess their session just ended. They have a bill that, a law now they've passed, mandates paid sick days for almost all workers. It accrues at the rate of 1 hour per 30 hours worked up to a maximum of 48 hours. Forbids non-compete agreements in labor contracts. That 48 hours would probably work out to 12 days. It forbids non-compete agreements in labor contracts. It establishes sectoral bargaining system for nursing homes. That's huge. That means it's not just a matter of a nursing home that people that nurses can strike against or bargain with. It's across all of the nursing homes. It allows teachers to negotiate class sizes. It bans captive audience meetings where employers force their workers to listen to anti-union propaganda. It also sets up protections for meat packers, construction workers, and Amazon employees. I think we mentioned that the other day, actually. And they just passed another bill 2 days ago that guarantees a minimum wage for Uber and Lyft drivers.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's really encouraging, especially given like what we saw in California some years ago. There's this great video going around. I mean, we have it, but we don't need to play it. But the legislator, state senator Omar Fateh, he was lifted into the air by a bunch of Uber and Lyft drivers, chanting him. Let's play it. I have it in. I sent it in the chat there. But that's really like this. They legalized pot. They expanded public college, making it free for a lot more families too, right?
They also
more funding for public defenders.
This is after the Uber Lyft bill was passed on Sunday. Guarantees a minimum wage for Uber and Lyft drivers.
That's so cool.
It is pretty cool. Can you bet on re-election numbers? For that?
Yeah, honestly.
The other big policy they passed is paid family and medical leave. So people who have earned at least $3,500 over the past year will be eligible for up to 12 weeks of benefits in both categories. This is a maximum of 20 weeks per year. Benefits will be calculated with a progressive replacement rate, 90% of prior wages under half the state wage, 66% up to the full average, plus 55% above the average. I mean, that, it's not a perfect policy. It would be good to do it just regardless of if based upon what you're earning now, as opposed to what had been, for all parents, even if you hadn't worked over the last 12 months. In other words, just a minimum benefit. We did that with the child, the child tax credit Minnesota has a universal free school breakfast and lunch program. It's only the third in the nation. They passed a law to protect abortion rights. It is already legal in Minnesota, but not a bad thing to do at this point.
Codifying it, yeah.
Well, because that's where the clinic in North Dakota moved right across the river into Moorhead, Minnesota. So that's the one clinic basically servicing North Dakota is in Minnesota.
They have passed a slate of pro-LGBT protections. One bill banned conversion therapy. 2 others protected non-residents seeking gender-affirming care or abortions from being punished or extradited by conservative states. Incidentally, if you're Canadian, sign that petition. It's the last day, I think, to sign that petition to welcome folks seeking asylum because of repressive anti-trans laws in this country. We can put that in the chat, in the podcast and YouTube description again. They've legalized recreational marijuana. They've instituted automatic voter registration, also super important and super smart. Restoration of voting rights to felons, gun control measures, a huge education overhaul, making prison calls free, and a law allowing unauthorized immigrants to get driver's license. State budget poised to increase by 40%. All this stuff is great, and it's one vote. We just do we have that clip of Walz signing something?
Yeah. The gun legislation.
Yeah, this is gun legislation, just as an example.
But it is a good day. In the State of the State speech I gave a little over a month ago, I said, if anyone in America doubts that we are going to do everything to protect our children, I said, watch us. And this group here has been watching and trying to protect our children and our families and our communities for decades, quite literally decades. The issues that we will sign today are 2 very simple, common sense issues that have been being asked to be debated here at the Capitol for decades, and even that small request was not honored until this year. And the leadership you're going to hear from in the House and the Senate around the whole spectrum of public safety, a transformational bill to make our communities safer, to bring restorative justice into the forefront, and to have the most basic protections around firearms that we can put into place in the state is going to happen. This is an issue some of you have heard me talk about for a long time. I grew up around firearms. I've hunted my entire life. I own them to this day. I used them in the military. And when asked, I will tell people I was the top gun of the congressional trap shoot 3 years in a row. I know how to use these things. I understand our rights as Americans to do these things. But I refuse to allow extremists to define what responsible gun ownership looks like and to make this about the Second Amendment. This is not about the Second Amendment. This is about the safety of our children and our communities. That's what's happening here today.
So, I mean, you pair this with the LGBTQ protections. You pair this with all of the really important economic protections, obviously the abortion rights, but when you're talking about parental leave and you're talking about medical leave and you're talking about free lunches and you're, I mean, on and on.
Banning non-competes is a great pro-worker move too.
Paid sick leave. And basically what they're doing is they are legislating in Minnesota the way that you're supposed to legislate. When you get the power, that's when you put these things through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You don't get hung up on, we only have one vote majority. We've got to do everything we can to protect that majority. If you think that way and it inhibits you from doing what you think is right, it is not going to end up protecting that majority any more so than doing this stuff. In fact, I would argue this is how you saw the enthusiasm for the,
The school lunches, the kids, cheering. I mean, it was a well done photo op, but every normal person's going to be enthusiastic about that.
I mean, doing this is not only important for all the people that it helps, but not doing this is a favor to fascism that every Democrat from Ilhan to like Durbin apparently is concerned about. And like you look at this paid family leave thing. I've been very critical of the Minnesota Republican Party. I think they're as rancid as any in the country. But when you actually have Democrats proposing things like paid family leave, it makes the Republicans try to act normal. They have to get in there with something like, oh, we're going to do optional private insurance plan with tax incentives for employees, right? Whereas like if the Democrats are the one proposing that like milquetoast crap, then the Republicans can go be like, well, actually, we're going to make this about I don't know, throwing immigrants out or something.
It's about framing it, right? And like setting the debate yourself or setting the contours of it yourself. And like the fact that, again, they just have this one seat majority in the state Senate. It's ironic because like in the U.S. Senate, we also just have a one seat majority and there's no ability for.
We have the filibuster.
We have the filibuster. But like this is what actual democracy looks like in Minnesota. And Minnesota borders Wisconsin, another state that is like kind of on the cusp of beating back a lot of extremist Republican gains that were made during the Obama administration and Trump and the Tea Party era, right? So this is a lesson to Wisconsin too. Like this can happen maybe there. They have a Democratic governor. Hopefully with like the new maps from the state Supreme Court, they can get some more Democrats in place and act with the respective urgency. Like it is so frustrating to live in New York State, a blue state like this, and understand that even though we're basically blue the entire time, we have a Democratic governor, we've got Democratic state legislature, there is no urgency to pass similar things in the same way, because when it becomes stagnant like that, it creates its own corruption. But these things are possible, obviously.
And I think a difference too is that as opposed to the Minnesota Democratic DFL, Democratic Farmer Labor Party, the point of the New York Democratic Party infrastructure is to attack the left and to crush the left. There is no, like, they've made it very clear that they really have no interest in winning or actually achieving any sort of gains in the legislature with their power. They'd rather just, crap on progressive state legislators and issue press releases crapping on AOC for saying one thing or the other. So it's also a difference in priorities as well.
Well, yeah, I mean this is like, the New York State Democratic Party is sort of like more like a gang than anything else.
Yeah.
But the point, the larger lesson here is you when you get the power, you use it. You use it like you're getting away in a getaway car. And we've seen the Republicans do this whenever they get into power. And also, these voting measures as a minimum, automatic voter registration, expanding the franchise, that is also something that enhances your power. Building out the opportunity, making it easier for people to unionize and giving them more reason to unionize also builds your power.
Feed people.
And providing material benefits to people, it doesn't have a one-to-one relationship in terms of them supporting you down the road. But the point is it's definitely going to help. But there are specific measures that you can take that are associated with increasing your power and expanding the franchise has been shown to help Democrats. That's why Republicans are so against people voting. They have been explicit about this over the years. They know the fewer people who vote, ultimately, the better for them.
It's what Matt said earlier in reference to Biden and the debt ceiling fight. Like, Democrats can't get into power and just maintain. It's literally irresponsible when you have a party as extreme as the Republican Party.
Speaking of maintenance, David Day in 12:47, it's about a half hour or 15 minutes ago. So Joe Biden, who mumbles in public about, quote, having the authority, end quote, to continue paying the nation's bills, has signaled intention to file opposition to the case challenging the constitutionality of the debt ceiling statute. It's not that Biden or the White House thinks that's not enough time or that the Supreme Court will stop any effort to end run the debt limit. By their actions, they are demonstrably opposed to challenging the debt limit. They believe in it.
Yep. They love... Great.
All right. Well, Dane will be on Friday. We'll get an update on that.